30,000 years ago, a human being crouched inside a cave and painted a god on the wall. They had no internet, no philosophy degree, no organized religion. They were cold, scared, and outnumbered by predators they couldn't explain. And yet, they invented the divine. Why? The answer is not what you think, and it tells us something shocking about how every human brain, including yours, still works today. The oldest explanation is fear. Ancient humans didn't understand lightning, disease, drought, or death, so they did what every human brain does when it encounters something it can't control. It invented an agent, a mind behind the chaos. Psychologists call this agent detection. Your brain is wired to assume there is a who behind every what. A rustle in the bushes? Predator? A fever that won't break? Something is doing this to me. A river that floods every spring? Someone is choosing to flood it. It was a survival mechanism. The cost of assuming an agent when there wasn't one, running from a false alarm, was low. The cost of not assuming one when there was, standing still while the lion moved, was death. So we evolved to see faces in clouds, intentions in storms, and minds behind the universe. But fear alone doesn't explain it. There's a second mechanism even more fundamental. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is so aggressively good at finding patterns that it finds them even when they aren't there. Researchers call this apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. Ancient humans noticed every spring, the rains came back. Every year, the sun returned after the dark months. Crops grew in cycles. Animals migrated in cycles. Women's bodies cycled with the moon. These patterns were real, but to a brain hungry for explanation, they pointed to something controlling the pattern: a designer, a keeper of the cycle. The concept of God didn't come from ignorance. It came from an extremely sophisticated attempt to model a world full of genuine regularity. Here is the question that may have started everything. What happens after we die? Ancient humans buried their dead with food, tools, and jewelry, tens of thousands of years ago, long before any organized religion existed. This means that at some point, the human brain became aware of its own mortality and refused to accept the ending. Evolutionary biologist David Sloan Wilson argues that belief in something beyond death is functionally adaptive. Groups who believed the dead were watching over them cooperated better, worked harder, treated each other more morally. A God who sees everything and judges behavior is, from a pure game theory perspective, a remarkably effective social technology. You can't police every human in a tribe of 300, but an all-seeing divine force can. Ancient people didn't just create gods to explain the world. They created them to hold their societies together. Here's what makes this truly strange. Your brain may be hardwired to experience the divine. Neuroscientist Andrew Newberg has spent decades scanning the brains of people during intense prayer and meditation. What he found was consistent. Activity in the parietal lobe, the region that defines your sense of self and separates you from not you, decreases significantly. When that boundary dissolves, people report feeling connected to something vast, unified with everything. The sensation described across every religious tradition, the mystic experience, the divine union, appears to have a neurological basis. This doesn't tell us whether God exists, but it tells us that the human brain can generate profound experiences of something beyond the self, reliably, repeatably, across every culture that has ever existed. Ancient humans may not have invented a story about God. They may have had a very real experience, and the story came after, trying to explain it. Around 12,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. Humans built Göbekli Tepe, a massive stone temple complex in what is now Turkey. It predates agriculture, it predates permanent settlements, it may predate civilization itself. Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt spent decades excavating it and concluded, the temple came first, the community organized around it. Religion didn't emerge from civilization, civilization may have emerged from religion. The gathering, the shared ritual, the sacred site, these created the social bonds that made large-scale cooperation possible. They gave strangers a reason to trust each other. God wasn't the product of an organized society. God may have been the tool that built one. So we have a set of powerful explanations: agent detection, pattern recognition, terror of death, social cooperation, neurological mystical experience. Together they explain how God belief could arise naturally in any human population at any point in history without anyone teaching it, but they leave one question completely open. If the human brain evolved specifically to generate experiences of the divine, why? Random mutations don't persist across 100,000 years unless they offer a survival advantage. The capacity for religious experience is too universal, too consistent, too neurologically specific to be accidental. Some scientists argue it was a byproduct. Agent detection and pattern recognition were so useful that mystical experience came along for the ride. Others argue something more radical, that if the experience of transcendence is real, reliable, and universal, maybe the question isn't why humans invented God. Maybe the question is what humans were detecting. That question is still open. Science hasn't closed it. Here is what we know for certain. Every human civilization that has ever existed, in every corner of the planet, across every epoch of recorded history, has produced some form of the divine. Not the same God, not the same rituals, but the same impulse, the same reaching. That is either the most important clue in human history or the deepest mystery in neuroscience. Ancient people did not create God because they were stupid. They created God because they were human. And being human means standing in the world, looking up, and sensing that whatever is out there, it is looking back. The question of why they did that is really the question of what we are. And nobody, not science, not religion, has fully answered it yet. Like and subscribe for more videos.